Welcome everybody to Cindy's Certified Recipes. Today's a super exciting day because we are going to be embarking on a meat journey. But before we get to that, if you're not already one of my great subscribers, I would sure appreciate you hitting that subscribe button, and then you can hit that notification bell and you'll get first dibs on all my upcoming videos. And so let's get on to this meat. Our meat journey today is my perfectly spiced, uber delicious, ever so popular meatloaf. And before we get to all that meat, we got to make the panade. And the panade is going to be these fresh pulled Italian breadcrumbs. It's just nice, super soft bread. And I put that in a bowl. And then this is half and half. And I like to use half and half for this because of the fat layer in there. You got half cream and half whole milk. Fat mix for a very, very delicious meatloaf. And you're just going to be squishing those with a fork, and then they'll need to sit a few minutes before we put them into the meat, and they'll absorb that half and half. I find using dry breadcrumbs, they steal the moisture from the meat and make it tough. So I highly recommend a panade. All right, that's gonna sit and absorb. And I'll set that aside and we will add that later. Now, here's the star of the show. And anytime I do a meatloaf, I like to use 3 meats. And this is going to be ground beef, veal, and pork. And the pork in particular, I like to get it ground extra fine. And so I'll pick out a couple of nice boneless pork chops that have a decent amount of fat on them. And I'll ask the butcher if he can do a fine grind on the pork, because I feel that it does a better job of a nice mouthfeel in the meatloaf. And so this is a pound of ground beef, half a pound of pork, and half a pound of veal. And to that, we are going to start spicing this up. And I want to start, first of all, by adding some freshly ground Parmesan cheese. Then some Worcestershire sauce. Black pepper. Wipe off my hands. Some hot pepper flakes. Just a little tiny bit of nutmeg. 1/4 teaspoon of paprika. And this is garlic. And it looks like applesauce, but it's actually garlic. And I like to grate the garlic. I want it super fine. I don't want chunks of garlic in my meatloaf. And this is dried oregano. Salt. Some fresh minced parsley. And then this is onions that are super minced. I want those two nice and fine. That's a small onion. And this is kind of like my secret ingredient. This is powdered au jus, you guys. And this is the bomb in here. So in goes that. 2 eggs, already beaten. And a lot of people use ketchup or tomatoes, just plain old tomato sauce. And I like to use a spicy arrabbiata sauce, you guys. It is to die for. I get this one at Sprouts. If you don't have a Sprouts, just look for a nice spicy arrabbiata jarred sauce in your store and use that instead of tomato or ketchup. Tomato sauce or ketchup. Alrighty, and now I'm going to add my panade. Now it's time to get dirty. And try to avoid really squeezing this stuff. You don't want to over knead your meat, otherwise you end up with a tough meatloaf. It's really almost the same as meatballs. And to me, a meatloaf is just a giant meatball. In fact, sometimes I kind of almost hate the name meatloaf, and you know, everything seems to sound better in French, right? So let's call it a pain de viande. So next time you're making meatloaf and people say, hey, what's for dinner? You can say, pain de viande. Hilarious. So you want to mix this well. You just want to not, you know, squeeze it. I know it seems like a lot of mixing, but you don't want to get a mouthful of just plain meat or a mouthful of a glob of spice. So. All right, that's looking good. So next, oh, I had a little overboard. Next, I'm going to bring over my pan, and we're just going to put that meat in the pan. And oh, I forgot to mention too that I like to use a little piece of parchment here. That's my lifter sling. When I go to take the meatloaf out, I can just lift up this parchment and lift him right out of the pan. So I'm gonna put this meat in here and fill in the voids without pressing too hard. There's a fine line between getting it down in the crannies and squishing it too hard. I gotta tell you guys, it already smells wonderful. I don't like that piece of onion got in there. It didn't get minced as small as I like. Just gonna try and make that smooth. That looks good. Now I'm going to bring over a little more of that spicy arrabbiata sauce and put that on top. I only want a thin layer, and I'll show you why here in a minute. Just like that. Because now we're bringing over a really beautiful apple smoked bacon. Has a lot of sweetness and smoky flavor that we're just going to be placing that on top. And that's going to add to the flavor of this delicious meatloaf, you guys. Gotta stretch them a little bit. There we go. And that's all there is to it. And that's going to go in a 350-degree oven for about 50 minutes. And then we'll check on it. And we'll be right back. Our delicious meatloaf is out of the oven. And I halfway through drained some of the juices out, but I like to keep a degree of juice inside. And so this will sit here and continue to rest approximately 20 minutes before I lift it out of that pan and we cut into it. And so we'll be back after it's nice and rested. Isn't this a thing of beauty? I mean, my mouth is watering standing here. I can hardly wait to eat it. But it's out of the oven and rested, and I took it out of the pan with my little parchment handles that I showed you earlier. And all I did was, since it sits in the pan and it's not free like some other meatloafs are just on a pan, I basted the sides with a little bit of my arrabbiata spicy sauce and just decorated it up a little bit, and it's ready to eat. And so I am going to slice into it. I'll have to turn it. There's your view. Literally, my mouth is watering, you guys. This is so good. I could eat this whole thing. I swear, you guys, you're gonna love it. It is so good. And I gotta show you something else. These are those Hawaiian sweetbread rolls you buy in the store. And earlier I just sliced this whole thing in half when they were like whole. I just ripped these 6 off the bunch. And I'm just gonna take off 2 like that. And 2 over here. You know where I'm going with this, right? And we're gonna take this slab-o meatloaf. Look at that. You know what you call that, right? A meatloaf slider. Gotta take a bite. Look at that. Another piece I gotta eat. Totally, totally delicious. Full of flavor. Texture is incredible. I'm telling you, you have to try it, and all your friends are going to love it. So you might want to double the recipe and make 2. So please don't forget to look at my comfort food playlist. This is obviously going to be on there and is on there. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because my channel is a very delicious place to be. And I'll see you next time on Cindy Certified Recipes. When it's time tested, top-notch ingredients, and the talk of the table, it's Cindy Certified.